All right,
Okay.
folks, huge treat for you today because I have the one and only last in line drummer, Vinny Appice. I guess when you say it that way, it kind of takes on a bit of a different meaning, doesn't it, Vinny?
Yeah. Among other bands, and at least you said the name right too. So that's good.
Yeah, I know now. Your brother, he pronounces it Appice. Yeah, I know, and that's probably
Yeah,
something that happens quite often.
yeah. And then my other brother, who lives around the block from me, he says Apici. So there's three different pronunciations.
Oh boy,
It's
well
crazy.
that complicates it even further.
Total mess.
It's great to have you on the phone. I think we talked last it must have been about 4 years ago. I think you and your brother were first starting to maybe collaborate a little bit back then. So it's nice to get you on the line just to talk about all things Last in Line, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, listen. I know this. The story of Last in Line goes all the way back to the original Dio band, right? I think it was originally the three members, kind of mine as Ronnie. You guys got
Yeah.
together for a bit of a reunion type deal.
Well, we got together. Viv called up and said, hey, I'm here with Jimmy. Hey, would you be into having a play? Going to rehearsal place and having a play together. And I said, yeah, that would be great. So three of us went into the studio, rehearsal place, and we jammed, on all the Dio songs, and we had a good time. It was fun. And then we decided it was so much fun, we'd do it again. And when we did it again, Andy Friedman, he was a good buddy of mine, was in town. I said, why don't you come down? You know these songs. You want to sing? He goes, sure. So he had a little break in whatever he was doing. He came down and sang, and he blew everybody away. Like, Viv never really met him, and he sang these songs like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we said, that was so good. It sounded like a band. Why don't we do some gigs?
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We started doing gigs, and then our manager, Steve Strange, got us a deal on Frontier Records eventually, and that's how we started with the first album.
Yeah. So now, take me back to when the original unit formed here, Vinny. I think, you and Ronnie were in Sabbath, and there was a little bit of strife going on there, I think. So the story goes.
Yeah. What happened was, we were doing the Mob Rules tour, then we did a Live Evil album, a live album, and then by the time that happened, they weren't getting along.
Yeah.
So Ronnie had a record deal for a solo record, which he was going to do, a solo record with just like friends on the, everybody playing on it and things like that. So he decided, well, I'm going to use this deal to put my own band together.
Yeah.
And that's when he said, I'm going to leave the band and I'm going to put a new band together. You want to join me? So that's how we started.
So then the chemistry then in those original days with Jimmy and Vivian, I mean, did it feel like a bit of a breath of fresh air when you guys got together? Like, how did that chemistry start, and what was the feeling like in the room when you originally got things together, Vinny?
Well, when we Sabbath obviously wasn't, that was so exciting to play with Tony and Geezer. So there was never, that was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And then when it came down to this, it was just an exciting thing because I was asked by Tony and Geezer to stay in the band, and then I was asked by Ronnie to go form a new band. So I had a choice, but Ronnie and I got along so well, and we both live in California. It was a lot easier to do something together.
Yeah.
And it sounded exciting, something exciting, a whole new band, and this could be great. We're one of the great singers, obviously. So I decided to stay with Ronnie, and then we just took it from there. Then we went over to Europe, England, and waited for Jimmy to come off tour a couple of days, and he came back and he recommended Vivian. So we called Viv, and Viv came over the next day, and we jammed in London, and it was like magic, magic to it. So
Yeah.
that's how it came together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's evidence, obviously in your early work, Holy Diver, and of course the album Last in Line, and then finally, the four of you with Sacred Heart. Just fast forwarding now, of course, we lost Jimmy in 2016, so you guys have decided to go with Phil Soussan. I mean, what does he bring to the table with Last in Line, so many years later?
We started with Jimmy, obviously, and we got the album done, and then we played probably about maybe 6 gigs together, 8 gigs together. And then Jimmy passed, so we took some time off to decide what we want to do,
Yeah.
And then we decided eventually, Jimmy would want us to continue. He wouldn't want us to stop because of him.
Yeah.
Jimmy's the rocker. I'm a big rocker, actually. So we decided to do some bass auditions. So we had a number of people come down. Phil's a good friend, so we knew Phil, but we then didn't know how he sounded in the band. So when Phil came down, he played with us, and it just sounded great. Mm-hmm. And so he joined the band, and then we did a lot of gigs in 2016 and 17. So we became very tight, And Phil and I have done projects together too, and I played with him on numerous things. So we really fit well together, and Viv fit well together with Phil also. So it was a good fit, a natural thing when he came into the band.
I think comparatively, you've said Phil is maybe a little bit more melodic, whereas Jimmy might be a little bit more rhythmically driven.
Yeah, Jimmy liked to he wasn't a technical bass player. He was more of just a sound. He could plug into a microwave and sound good. Jimmy, he's unbelievable. We used to laugh. He plugged into anything, any amp, and it sounds like Jimmy. But Jimmy liked to hold down the foundation a lot. If you hear some of the Dio stuff, he didn't really play a lot of bass runs, but he did hold it down with solid pedaling on the bass. So that's what we call it. And then Phil, on the other hand, plays more melodic. He holds it down, then he'll come up with different runs in the song. And I like that too. I like the bass to move along too. And with Jimmy being solid like that, I was able to go crazy with all the drum fills, So now with Phil, I do the same thing. Nothing's going to change the way I approach it. But, and it works. It works good. So Phil added a little bit of, more melody in some of the songs possibly,
Yeah.
So it worked out great, And plus, I've played with Phil so many times already, so we lock in. He knows when I'm going to go crazy, and then I'll just hold it down. Let me do my thing, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, and
we'll play stuff together.
I think now, the new record entitled 2 is coming out on Frontiers February 22nd. I mean, I guess from what I've heard through the grapevine now, your process is you guys just get together in a room and jam. I'm thinking of the new track Landslide. There's a pretty unique story there too, with Vivian basically just playing with his tone switch, and somehow the magic happened off that.
Well, you know what? I hear all sorts of weird shit. So when it comes to writing and stuff, I like to come up with ideas, even crazy ones, and it just keeps the energy going. And Viv was in the room just fiddling around with his switch. I go, "That's cool," and he thinks I'm nuts. And then I'll record it on the phone. Right? I said, "We gotta work with that," and sure enough, that became the intro of the song. It became the intro of the show now too. We got a pre-recorded.
Oh, nice.
Thing of it works so cool. So just ideas like that. And with any of the bands, Sabbath from Mob Rules on, Dio from Holy Diver, and this band, nobody came in with songs that were written already. Everything was built in the room.
Yeah.
Everything was jammed out. Nobody said, "Hey, I got the song called Mob Rules, and here's how it goes." Tony never did that. It was more of a natural thing for bands like this to just play, sweat it out, and record the stuff, listen to it, and start building on things we liked. And that's how we wrote all those songs.
Yeah.
All 3 bands.
Yeah, it must be interesting through the years. Of course, Tony is a legit shredder. I mean, nobody would dispute that, but I mean, what he's really known for is his riffs, whereas maybe Vivian might be on that opposite end of the spectrum where he's seen as more of a shredder. So, I mean, you know, is there anything that you do with your own playing depending on what type of guitar player you're working with or what type of singer you're working with? Because I imagine even Andrew and Ronnie are, you know, pretty different in terms of their approach too, eh?
Yeah, well, when you play with Ton Iommi, you're playing with the master, you know, and he is the riff master. At sound checks, we had a lot of nice jams together. Just sometimes me and Tony, guitar and drums, he'll play some sort of riff, and then I'll hop in on that, and then we'll keep playing it because I'm in there, and we're jamming. So with Tony, I would keep it more steady and just lay it down. With Vivian, you know, we've played together so many times too. Vivian's a different player. I'm able to maybe direct it a little bit more, like go to a different feel and Viv will follow, you know. Or sometimes Viv will go to a different thing and I'll follow. We moved a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Iommi is just such a big, massive guitar sound and approach that you just, you know, it breeds Sabbath. You know.
I've heard Tony has some legit jazz chops. Is there any truth to that? Did you ever see anything in a just a random jam with him where he pulled off something and you're like, what? That sounds like Wes Montgomery, or you know?
Well, yeah, Tony. I think he likes Joe Pass. You know, he's influenced by jazz when he's you know learning how to play and playing. So yeah, sometimes we would jam on some jazz too. You know, I could play a little bit, and you know he'll fool around and just play some nice clean solos over it, and you know he likes to play that stuff. And if you listen to the old Sabbath stuff, it's kind of jazz, some of the stuff in there.
You know, at the same time, Vivian with his Holy Diver guitar solo, he probably shredded out one of the more recognizable and singable guitar solos in all metal, arguably.
Oh yeah, and he plays this shit live like it just shreds. You know, people love to hear those solos. You know, and only he could play it that way because he's Viv and they're his solos. You hear other people try to play the solos and it doesn't sound the same. Viv's just got, you know, Viv's got an amazing feel. You know, amazing approach, and he's fast and he's kind of wicked. You know, so. It's only one Viv, you know, and me and him just lock in like a bastard. I mean, it just locks it.
Yeah.
We lock in, and you know, because I like to play, make sure the thing's nice and steady, and maybe behind the beat slightly. A lot of European guitar players play very steady, like Tony. You know.
Yeah.
You start playing chord, chunking away. It's just nice and solid, you know. So
yeah.
Works well.
Well, and that's what keeps you know a group like you know Last in Line as magical as it is just kind of everybody knows right where to lock in and what needs to be done, and I suppose that goes way back to that initial relationship that we talked about right at the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah, and then you got a singer like Andy Friedman. I mean, Andy just puts his heart into what he's singing, and he hits some similar to Ronnie. He hits notes that are just like incredible, and that makes me like, whoa, it kicks me in the ass.
Yeah.
Not many singers, actually, really just Ronnie and Andy have done that to me, where you're playing with somebody and then they just go for it, and it makes you go for it, you know.
For sure.
It's a great singer, and it's just a great band. And we like, and you know what? We all get along. No bullshit.
well, that's definitely
important.
That's definitely important. Well, the album's called 2. It releases on Frontiers Records February 22nd, and of course, you guys are doing an accompanying tour starting off in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, February 7th, and then going straight through to May ending off May 12th in Warrendale, Pennsylvania. So that's going to be a good little run, Vinny. I really appreciate you just taking the time to chat with me today, man.
One more quick thing. One of the gigs are in June. We're playing with Def Leppard.
That's right, yeah.
Which is going to be fun. Playing Download Festival, so Viv will play with us on one stage, and then later that night they're headlining the festival, so he'll play with Def Leppard too. So that's going to be cool.
Right on.
Very cool show.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right. See you soon.
Bye-bye.